Has there been a bigger club in a worse spot than West Coast? We've seen crisis in footy clubs, but not generally in a club this big. It is rock bottom at West Coast.
A 22-goal outing to get off the bottom of the ladder. A 116-point thrashing of West Coast.
Yeah, extremely disappointing. Not good enough. Unacceptable. You know, it's not the standard we're looking for. There's no excuses about today. None at all.
What do you expect to happen this week?
Someone has to go.
Who? That'll be the question.
I think it's fairly obvious. Enough's enough.
Oh, definitely.
You think it's time for Adam Simpson to go?
He can't continue.
So he has to go now, does he?
Yep.
In your mind?
Yeah, well, something has to happen.
I think Adam Simpson needs to take some responsibility for a performance like that. This might be one of the worst performances that we've seen. I don't think we've seen too many darker days in football.
Probably isn't even at the bottom yet. It's not even there yet. So if you're angry now, stay angry because it hasn't even hit the bottom. But sack him if you want. But who are they going to get that's going to go to an absolute bottom-out rebuild? Rebuild coaches don't survive. And you want to walk into this. Get on this slide halfway down.
At what stage is trust lost irrevocably? Not just in the senior coach, but in leadership in general, in the direction that the club is going in. Potentially the only way you can stop that is to change the personnel. Simo has so much to offer. My question is he in the right place to offer that?
No, I don't think he's in the right place to offer this. I mean, he's been there now for a long time. He's showed far too much faith in players who took him to the top of the mountain. I mean, that was 2018, but this is a team that won a final, Matthew, in 2020.
People have been there longer. The CEO, 26 years.
Yeah,
and...
look, Trevor Nisbet will probably retire soon or step down from this role, but you can't blame only Trevor Nisbet on this. Those players, I mean, they're still not all of them fit. They're still not all of them. There's still something terribly wrong with their high-performance program. They need a complete clean-up. I can't agree with David King that this is not a club to come to now. Why wouldn't you get someone new
I think
now?
it's for this reason, Caro, that the players on their list, the contracts, I think that's what David's getting at, that there's probably worse to come. I don't know if you can get much worse than their performance on the weekend, but it's that these contracts are there for older players who aren't offering anything. None of these players have had a good year. None of these players get out on the park, and they haven't for 3 years, Kane. So that's where it can get worse from here for the next coach.
Kane, from memory, you flagged this 2 years ago. You had a time writing for the West Australian and beyond, and you said that their list strategy was flawed, that they were going down an ageing path. And the Eagles ended the season with the third oldest playing list in the league and a lack of fresh elite talent. The reaction at the time to you calling out that list strategy, the ageing nature of the list, the fact they were always injured, was attacked by those in charge.
I don't take anything that Kane Corn says as any value whatsoever. I'm not sure what you call them, shock jocks or whatever, but some of the stuff he says is just ridiculous. And it's sad that actually he's gone to those levels because it's just not fair.
To be honest, I haven't read anything that Kane Corns has written or heard anything he said, so irrelevant is what comes to my mind about what his opinion is.
It speaks to the arrogance of the club, and they've had their head in the sand for far too long. I mean, anyone that watches football can see that this was where West Coast were going to end up. The lack of draft picks, the overpaying of the players that you mentioned, Lordo, the loyalty to those players that just don't play, and
even you couldn't have picked what would happen on Saturday.
I'm going to get to that in a second, because the lack of standards that Adam Simpson has to own. He let his players off far too easily. They were unfit, they were overweight, and this is the result that you get where you lose by 116 points to the 18th team on the ladder. The amount of times that they broke tackles and waltzed through, it was honestly like an internal trial in February, this game yesterday, and they should be embarrassed by it. I'm sick of the excuses out of West Coast. We're injured. Okay, well, for 3 years, your record speaks to a lot more than injuries. And this isn't injuries. This is effort, and this is a team that has essentially given up. And Adam Simpson, it's not solely his fault. Clearly, there are other reasons why it's led to this, but ultimately, he's the one that will pay the price. He won't survive to the end of the year. You can't. No coach in history has survived a record with 4 wins and 30-odd losses over a 2.5-year period. So there's some of the numbers, Lordo.
Yeah, this was the third lowest score in the club's history yesterday. The 2 points was the fewest second half points in club history. the 5th biggest loss in club history and 6 fewest scoring shots is against an 18th ranked side in Hawthorn. So, yeah, I think the broom needs to go through the club. Just to get
a cultural reset. I mean, they've got a relatively new president in Paul Fitzpatrick, and you talk about the arrogance. I mean, they don't listen to anyone outside of their own walls.
Well, they should.
And I think now they must be starting to, and they did once before when the drug scandal happened, and they came to Melbourne every year. They sold themselves to the media. They tried to integrate themselves into the wider football scene, and for a long time they were a new footy club, and now it's happened again.
Laughing stock at the moment, they are on the field,
and those
with the type of resources they've got.
Yeah, and Trevor's been great for West Coast, and so has Adam. But I think it's just time for a fresh start.
2 things: they can't take Harley Reid. Pick one.
Why not?
Just they can't give up that on one pick. They got and he's a Victorian who may fly home anyway in 3, 4, 5, 6 years, like Chris Juddy. They've got to open up the competition
with the pressure that they're under to make that call, which hasn't happened for a long time. Horn Francis had massive offers from Adelaide. North Melbourne said no.
They're going to get overpaid.
It'll be a big call.
They're going to get overpaid for him. There's such hype around the kid. They're going to get 3 picks in the first round for him. And that's not to say what else they might get thrown as a sweetener from other clubs. And secondly, and particularly you, Caro and Lordo, you've been, and this is not a great game to assess Hawthorn on, but to call out the list strategy, which you've been so hard on, they got great reward, at least on the weekend. They got 28 touches actually out of Wedding, pick 2.
Craig, I am not going to discuss
had a
this
good game. Brockwood had a good game.
Kidding.
Day looks like the next captain.
It's having any credibility. It was a non-game.
At least there's a plan, though. And
pick 7 played, pick 20 played.
Clearly.
Mitchell and Momira picks played.
I have said
they are on the path.
Several weeks ago that yes, they're on the right path, but I won't have that game as any sort of evidence.
You just may have got that wrong on Hawthorn and their list strategy.
Please.